24-year-old worker spent most of the morning welding steel inside a machine shop. Although he was not exposed to the sun, the outside temperatures topped 86 degrees that day, and the heat and humidity made it uncomfortable. At lunchtime, the man sat in the air-conditioned lunchroom, but did not eat anything, complaining that he did not feel well. He drank a bottle of water before returning to work. At 3:40 p.m., a co-worker found the man lying between cars in the employee parking lot. He was transported to a hospital where they diagnosed him with heat stroke. His internal temperature had reached 109 degrees. After a couple days in the intensive care unit, he recovered and eventually returned to work. Another man in the same town was not so lucky. He had been working on a roof during a day when the temperatures reached 95 degrees. Drinking water was available at ground level, but he did not want to waste time going up and down the ladder, so he waited until break time to climb down for a drink. After working 2 hours, he took a break and headed for the ladder. As he neared the edge of the roof, he told a coworker he felt dizzy, then collapsed and fell off the roof, falling 15 feet headfirst to the concrete pavement. He died of massive head injuries. When you combine high temperatures or high humidity with strenuous physical activity, you increase the chances of becoming dehydrated. Proper precautions can help stave off a rising internal body temperature, because as your internal temperatures continue to rise, it will eventually lead to heat rash, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, or a more serious medical emergency known as heat stroke. People with heart conditions, those who are overweight, on certain medications, over 65 years of age, or those with high blood pressure are more susceptible to heat stress. Stay properly hydrated when working in hot areas. If you feel thirsty, you are not drinking enough water. To remain properly hydrated, water intake must equal water output. A thirsty feeling is your body's signal that you have already lost too much fluid. Watch for signs of dehydration, which include fatigue, flushed skin, heat intolerance, lightheadedness, and dark-colored urine. If you suspect you are dehydrated, take a break and find somewhere to cool off while you rehydrate. Use cool compresses, wet towels, or body cooling neck wraps and headbands to decrease temperature. Use high volume, low speed fans. A 2 to 3 mile per hour breeze delivers the equivalent of a 7 to 10 degree decrease in perceived temperature. The fan also breaks the moisture barrier on your skin, reducing the perceived temperature by 8 to 10 degrees. Stay safe in hot conditions. Thanks for watching, and have a safe day.
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Jose Prado, Man-Made Survival, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today because, this podcast is going to be a little bit more different than what we used to. And the reason is because this podcast was really pretty much inspired by Reddit. And the reason I say that is because I went on there, I check out survival forums to see what people are talking about. And one of the things that people were really pretty much discussing this entire week was the heat wave that is coming through California and Texas and other places. And they were asking pretty much how to keep cool, which, it should be a no-brainer for most people, or for everybody really. But the way that I was reading things on Reddit, not only from people asking the question, but from people giving the comments or, giving the suggestions, it really made me shake my head, and it made me want to make this podcast. So I really do hope that the information that I bring you today, although it may sound silly or common sense, it seems like it's important for me to talk about it and bring it out to your attention. So I really do hope you pay attention to it. I hope that it does help you out. I hope you stay all the way to the end. And please share this information with your friends and family, because who knows, maybe you know somebody who does not know how to keep cool during the hot weather. All right, so as you saw in the beginning of this video, I started with that video that talked about heat stroke. And the reason that I did that is because you really do have to pay attention to your body temperature. All right, and one of the things that I learned and that I did when I was younger, when I was in my, early 20s, is that I worked in landscape. Your typical Mexican working in landscape, where fresh out of high school, I was making $8 an hour. I worked outside, with weed eating, mowing, push mowing, blowing, edging, and everything else. So I'm really good at it, because I did it for several years. But the point is that I worked outside during the summer and during the winter. So I knew how to keep warm, and I knew how to keep cold. And of course, right now, this topic is going to be about how to keep cool during this heat wave, which of course should be, common sense, but, here we are. So before I get into the tips and everything else, I really want to start off this podcast with this first headline. And the reason I want to do it is because, it's going to set the tone on how high we're talking about on the temperatures. And this from AccuWeather.com, and the title is Update. Death Valley temperatures crack 120. How high can it go? As an intense and record-breaking heat wave continues to roast the American West, the highest temperature occurred on Wednesday at the lowest point in North America, Death Valley. By Wednesday evening, high temperatures in Death Valley, California pushed 125 degrees, according to National Weather Service, with an AccuWeather real field temperature of 130. Death Valley is the record holder for the highest air temperature ever recorded on Earth, a sizzling 134 degrees Fahrenheit in 1913. The highest temperature of 125 degrees came just within 10 degrees of the world record. All right, and what you're seeing right now on your screen is a picture of pretty much, the intensity of this heat wave. And what you're seeing on the screen, and for people who are listening to the podcast, who, are just listening, not actually watching it, is a picture pretty much of North America, with parts of Mexico and parts of Canada, but mainly focusing on the United States. You can see on the West Coast from Mexico, Baja California, all the way up to Canada, you can see that there's a heat wave right there, and it has different shades. Of course, the brighter the color, the hotter it is. And the heat is pretty much concentrated on the West Coast, in California, going up through Washington State. And on the other side of the country, pretty much the other heat wave is from Texas, all the way from the south, going up towards New York. All right, so that's pretty much what you're seeing, or you saw on the screen. And that shows the heat wave that's coming through. And for the West Coast, some of these people do not have central heating and cooling because they don't need it, right? Because the temperature has always been really, really good in California and other places like that. So they're not used to having an AC unit. They do sell them over there, but it's not the same as you would find in a hot weather state like Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and other places like that. So the point of all of this is that even though Death Valley is the lowest point in California, we can go up to the rest of the area where it's not, so low, and you can find the temperatures being really hot. And what I was seeing on Reddit is that people were asking how to keep cool. They had no idea how to maintain their house cool, or at least their body cool, or their children, with this temperature coming through. And of course, hot weather although it's kind of silly to read the things that I read and really, bring you the tips that I'm going to bring you today. It feels kind of silly, but it's important because heat waves can kill people. They are important, and they are something that you should take serious, especially if you work outside. But of course, you already know how to keep cool. But, don't push your body past its limit, unnecessarily. It's not like you're in a survival situation. And of course, this heat wave is not so much a survival situation as it's just something inconvenient that's going to be here for a few days. All right, so what I want to do right now is I want to show you how nature shows us how to keep cool. And this video may seem a little silly for some people, but it's really not, because it's really going to show how nature takes care of hot weather, and animals take care of hot weather, how they keep cool. And that's exactly the same thing that we got to do. So I'm going to show you the video. I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about the preparedness, because everything that I show you and that I teach you here in this podcast, is proven with something that is not even an emergency. You can prepare for the worst, for an apocalyptic world, but when you're prepared the right way, even something inconvenient as a heat wave that comes through can be taken care of very, very easily. All right, but I'll talk about the prepping after that. Here's that video.
The sun's heat and power to evaporate water has had a profound effect on the bodies and habits of everything that lives here. This sun, potentially, is a killer. And the red kangaroos must acknowledge that. Right now, while the sun is low, there's no immediate cause for concern. But this situation won't last long. Australia is the world's most arid continent with blistering daytime temperatures. Every hour, the temperature rises by 5 degrees centigrade. Soon, the heat will reach a critical point. Any kangaroo out in the open is in serious danger of overheating. In the full sun, the temperature on the ground soars to 70 degrees. By midday, the radiation is so intense they must take shelter. In the shade, they're shielded from much of the sun's energy, but their body temperature can still rise. So they lick saliva onto their forearms, where there is a network of blood vessels close to the surface of the skin, and as the saliva evaporates, their blood is cooled. This thermal image shows just how effective the process is. The blue areas on the body are the cooler parts. As the saliva dries, it has to be replaced, and this is a real drain on the kangaroo's body fluids. Even in the shade, the earth is baking hot. So the kangaroos dig away the warmed topsoil to get at the cooler ground beneath. By staying in the shade and licking to control their body temperature, kangaroos manage to get through the hottest part of the day without heat stroke. But for the majority of desert animals, this strategy would not be enough for survival.
All right, so again, this might be a little bit silly for some people, but, nature will teach us the way the things that we need to know, or, the things that we need to know. So the same principle can be applied here. Now, what you're seeing on your screen is a picture of a product, and it's called iCool, the cooling towel, right? And you can get these at Walmart, Amazon, wherever you want to get them from. And what they do is that you can dip them in cold water, and they're going to stay cold for several hours. And you throw it over your body. You can throw it over your neck. You can throw it over your head, whatever the case may be, and they're going to help you stay cool. So you need to learn these things because, for me, they're common knowledge. Again, I worked in landscape, and that's what we did. We got rags. We put them in cold water, or when the sprinkler system came out, we would get them wet. We'd get our hat wet. We get ourselves wet, our bags. And make sure that, pretty much we were drenching in water, and then we continue on working because, the heat of the day is there. So we're cooled down with this water, and when the breeze comes through, it feels really, really nice. So those are the things that we did working in landscape to make sure that we stay cool even though we can continue working. Because, when you're cleaning malls and cleaning Walmarts and big, commercial properties, you get a few tips and things that you do, that you learn just by doing the job. And some of the things that you can do at home, if you're listening to this and you're going to go through the heat wave and you don't know what to do. All right, so there's different things. For one, just because this heat wave is coming through doesn't mean that the end of the world is coming, right? So that means that you can go to Lowe's and you can go to the grocery store or the gas station. To Lowe's, you can get buckets. You can get a bunch of buckets. You can spread them all throughout your house. And then you go to the grocery store or the gas station, get enough ice before, everybody buys it out. You fill the buckets inside your home, and then, don't cover it up or anything like that. And as the ice melts, the temperature in the house is going to be a little better. It's not going to be like, oh my God, it's a refrigerator or anything like that, but it's going to bring down the temperature. The other thing that you can do is put ice in the tub, fill it up with ice, and you can get in there if it gets that hot, or it can also help get one room in the house cool. Another tip, and this comes into the preparedness part, because again, everything that I teach you in this podcast really plays out the way that it will help you for anything. When you prep the right way, doesn't matter what comes your way that you didn't prepare for, you're going to be okay. For example, for food, if you have the space, then you're going to create a root cellar so you can keep your food cool, just in case there's a power outage, there's an EMP, there's cyber attack, whatever the case may be. A root cellar will keep your food cool, all right? Because, after, I think it's a foot of dirt, the temperature below that stays pretty steady, doesn't matter how it gets outside. So if you go down into the root cellar, you and your family, to get cooled off, that your prep for your food is going to be helping you in a different way that you didn't think about. All right, so what's the other thing that I teach you in this podcast? That you need to have some type of surface water running through your property. It could be a lake, a creek, an ocean, whatever the case may be. If it's really hot in your house, then you will go out there. You can have a day with the kids in the creek or in the lake. You can cool off. It's not going to be a big deal. And you're going to be okay. All right. Somebody from the podcast that I know, they have actually, invited me over to their house. They have a creek running through it. And it's a really nice creek. It's pretty wide. The water that comes through it stays pretty cool throughout the summer. And, they have cleaned it out and everything. So there's no dangers for snakes or anything like that. And you can actually go over there, take your kids, and enjoy your day. I've actually done it. So, the water preps that I teach you here come into play for that, even though it's something that we never prepare for. You didn't prepare for a heat wave to come through. But because you already have that prep in place, it helps you. The same thing goes with the well. Well water tends to be cool. You can even use the water they have in your rain catchment system if it's not out in the sun. So again, there's different things that you can do that should be a no-brainer, but for some people, they have no clue. They were freaking out on Reddit. And some of the tips that people were giving to me were silly. And I don't want to share them because, I don't want to put down anybody down that may have the same thoughts that, they thought is a good idea, which I think are silly. So I don't want to have the type of conflict. So again, there's several things that you can do. Now, you have to make sure that you can take care of these problems, because the next headline that I have for you is really going to show that the grid can fail at any minute. And one of the things that I teach you here is the core 4 things that you have to prepare for, which is the supply chain, which, involves food, water, medicine, and energy. And energy, when it fails, it reduces your standard of living, right? The standard of living would be that you cannot cool your home or you cannot heat your home. And that is happening in Texas again. This is from Zero Hedge. Texas electricity prices explode with power grid on verge of another meltdown. Goldilocks will not be pleased. Texas power prices infamously exploded higher during the frigid temperatures of the February winter storm that crippled so much of the state. And this time, amid blisteringly hot temperatures, Texas power prices are exploding higher once again, as ERCOT asked Texans to reduce electric use as much as possible today through Friday, June 18. All right, and even though this is a little old, you are seeing on the screen a picture of the temperatures, in Texas and in surrounding states, where in some areas the temperature got to 107, 106, 104, pretty much mid 80s and up, to mid low 100s. I guess that's the proper way to say it. Anyways, my point is that the temperature can come through and get really, really hot. And hopefully you have a pool. You live in a community that has a pool. You have a family member that has a pool. It can become a fun day where you just go get out of the heat. But let's say it's the middle of the week and you have to go to work, and your children, well, right now they're enjoying their summer vacation, but let's say they're in school, at least they'll be okay in school. But the point is that even if you cannot get away from work or from home because, you're working or whatever, you still can take those steps that I've shown you or that I actually share with you. So that's why it's important. Now, if you, by whatever reason, do have heat stroke, you have to have a way, or at least have the knowledge of how to get rid of it. All right. And the next video is just a minute video, and this is from Survival Tips from Japan. And it's really going to show you how to, have the first aid for heat stroke. Here it is.
A heat stroke occurs when a person's core temperature is so high that their body is unable to cool down. This usually happens during a heat wave, but if you're not drinking enough non-alcoholic liquid and are doing very strenuous physical exercise, you're in danger, too. Severe heat stroke is life-threatening and a medical emergency. To treat the heat stroke, the ambulance team lowers Amelia's core temperature by putting her in a cool, shady or air-conditioned place and remove any unnecessary clothes. Then they apply ice packs to her neck, back, armpits and groin and fan air over her. When she's conscious, she must drink water.
All right, so that video was short and sweet, simple. So it got to the point very quickly. What you have to do is go inside a place cool, or, try to cool yourself down in some way. But notice this. What they were saying is that you have to put something cool between your thighs, your armpits or your neck. Because what? There's veins. There's bigger veins there. What did I show you that the kangaroos do in nature? They lick, they put saliva in their arms because the veins are closer to the skin. So therefore, the saliva cools the body. So see, nature does show us the things that we have to do, or, ways that we can pretty much take care of ourselves if a heat wave or something like that comes through and we don't know what to do. All right, so we just have to pay attention, videos, nature videos like you saw from BBC News and others, those are great things to watch with your children. I personally love to watch those type of shows where it shows the oceans and it shows, jungles and other places like that, because I look it through the eyes of preparedness. And, I learn certain things just by watching them or by watching nature do its thing. So that is exactly what we have to do too. Now, the next headline that I have for you is kind of funny to me. And even though this happened this week, and by the time this video is released, it'll be too late, but it still shows that the things that I've taught you about preparedness are actually correct. This again from Sarah Hitchens says, after blisteringly hot temperatures, Texas faces shot of cold air next week. And that's kind of funny. It's kind of silly because people are worrying about the hot weather. They're asking for tips. Tips were kind of silly. And now there's this cold weather coming through. Now, this is where the preparedness about clothing comes into play, when I talk about it. Because you have two extremes that you have to worry about. Extremely hot and extremely cold. You can only do so much when it gets really, really hot. Because you can only get so naked before they call the police, right? And before you go to prison. And as I've shared with you, you can get the buckets of ice, put them all throughout your house. You can dip a rag in cold water and put it over your body or your family's body. Go to the lake or stuff like that. Those are very limited things that you can actually do. And, just because there's a heat wave going through California and Texas and other places doesn't mean that it's affecting me here in the United States. So, here in Alabama. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, it's the end of the world. So the other aspect of that is extremely cold weather. Now, right now is the perfect time for you to prepare for cold weather, because right now prices on gloves, jackets, and things that you can find online are going to be a lot cheaper because they're not in season. Okay, so you can actually find deals online, and I would suggest that you do that, because for cold weather, for extreme cold weather like Texas had already seen this year in February, you can get the right type of shoes, the right socks, which of course, the better the material, the higher quality of material, the better, which would be wool. You want to get wool. Because that's the warmest thing that you can have, and even if it gets wet, it stays warm. You can get long johns, underwear, or undergarments that go under your regular clothes. You can make sure that your pants, have some type of what do you call it? Liner inside of it that's gonna keep you warm. You can have several layers of shirt. Then you can have a sweater, and then a hoodie, a jacket, and then you go to have a mask, not for coronavirus, but for cold weather. You can have the goggles, you can have the hat, and you put your hoodie on top of it, and you stay warm. You also need to have your gloves. So it takes a lot more to get prepared for cold weather than it does for hot weather. For hot, you get naked. For cold, you get bundled up as much as you can. So that's why it's important to look at both extremes, because you're already used to being somewhere in the middle, wherever it is that you live. If you live in Alaska, you're used to the colder weather, right? It's not going to affect you as much. And if you live in Florida, you're used to the hotter weather, so it's not going to bother you as much. So again, it depends where you fall, but you want to prepare for both extremes. And the cold one is the one that needs more preparedness towards it, all right? And one of the things that I just remember is that for your cold preps, you need to have some type of heating system for your home, because what we saw in Texas was that a father went into some type of factory or something like that, and he took 2 pallets. He floor arranged the 2 pallets to take it home so he can burn it on the fireplace. And even if he did not have the pallets, there's a bunch of things that you can burn, like books and furniture, so you can keep your family safe, or at least warm during the cold snap. And for the majority of Texans, they did not have the preps in place, or at least a way to have their house heated up during the winter. And even if you live in an area that does not get cold or does not get hot, you have to make sure that you get the preps in place just in case it does happen. What happened in February in Texas, even though it had never happened before, that doesn't mean that this coming winter is not going to happen again. So Texan peoples, you need to be ready. All right, so I wanna change gears a little bit, even though it's still talking about the weather, or at least nature. There's this one thing that I find kind of cool, because this one happens naturally, but after I show you this video, the next thing is not so much so natural. Now I want to talk about climate change for just a second. To me, I don't want, before I go into it, I just want to mention that I don't want this to become political or anything like that. We all have our different opinions, and this falls into the category of whether people believe in it so much that it becomes a religion, or they dismiss it so much that, there's no way for them to see anything, falling anywhere in between or compromise in any way. The way that I fall into it is this. Are we 100% to blame for climate change or whatever? No. I don't believe that we are 100% to blame for it. Are there things that human beings do to harm the environment? Yes, of course, because we have seen it with Fukushima. The government there is dumping radioactive material into the ocean, which of course that is a man-made natural disaster, a man-made disaster that is going to really affect the ecosystem around Japan and throughout the world. There's, the nuclear power plants that if they melt down, there's just going to be another catastrophe. There's several things that humans do. Now that I think about it, in Mexico, the smog is so bad that you could actually see that the sky is yellow and everything like that. So are there things that humans do to harm the environment? Yes. Are we 100% responsible for climate change? I do not believe so. At least I have not seen the science to prove that. May I change my opinion later? Maybe so. And I don't know where you may fall. Maybe you're so religious on climate change that there's no way for you to be persuaded that it's not all our fault. Or you may fall into, you deny it so much that you cannot be told, or you cannot be shown proof that, yes, we're actually responsible for it. Now, I have this video that I want to show you. It comes from ABC 27. And this is something natural that happens in Florida. But, I wanted to share it with you because I think it's cool. But the next article that I have for you is not natural. And you can say that the Mexican government is to blame for this. All right, so let's first look at this video. Here it is.
Leon County's Lake Jackson, now not much of a lake at all, with no water, opening up the discovery of 2 human skulls on Sunday while bringing attention to a lake dry down. That's happened only 7 times since the start of the 1900s. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ava Van Valen.
And I'm Channing Frampton. ABC 27's Jada Williams joins us live from the lake tonight. Jada, what's behind the drying up of this lake?
Ava, Channing, about every 25 years, the lake dries out, as you can see behind me. That's because of 2 sinkholes under it. And when that happens, it uncovers the secrets beyond the water, like those 2 skulls. Now you see it. Now you don't.
4th time. That's just the 4th time I've seen this lake dry.
Despite the lack of water, James Johnson made his normal trip to the lake, hoping to find his catch of the day. Johnson says his family has fished in these waters for generations.
My family was talking about it, how it goes and comes.
Northwest Florida Water Management says the first documented disappearance of the lake's water was in May of 1907. According to them, this is the 7th time since then.
It's a natural occurrence where the water just kind of drains from the basin.
There are 2 sinkholes under the lake, slowly draining. Over time, especially with low rainfall, the hole opens up even more. There is some good that comes with the draining. It removes that muck and sediment, creating a better environment for the fish to return to. Florida Department of Environmental Protection spent the day surveying the area, preparing to study it once again. Commissioner Rick Minor says this draining also presents the county with another opportunity.
What we're going to be doing is working with FDEP and other agencies to promote litter cleanups of the lake bed.
Now, there is no telling when those skulls that were found in Lake Jackson will be identified. As of right now, they're at the medical examiner's office. Now, as for the cleanup that Commissioner Minor mentioned, we will eventually be able to sign up for that. It'll be on the county's website. In Tallahassee, Jada Williams, ABC 27.
All right, so again, to me that was pretty cool, so I wanted to show it to you. It's something that occurs naturally. But this next headline does not. Okay, and I have several thoughts on why this has happened, but, maybe climate change is to blame, maybe not. Maybe, corruption in Mexico is to blame, maybe not. We'll see. I'll leave that up to you. But the article comes from strangesounds.org, and the article title is Lake Quetzal, Mexico's 2nd biggest lake, is now a cemetery of abandoned fishing boats. Drought has dried up what was Mexico's 2nd biggest lake, destroying a once thriving fishing economy in Michoacan. The scale of the problem: Lake Quetzal should have 800 million cubic meters of water, but today it doesn't even have 200. Now, the more than 300 square kilometers reservoir has become a cemetery for fishing boats and a shortcut for motorists to reach Morelia, the state capital of Michoacan. The water disappearance also creates frequent and prolonged dust clouds that sometimes reach nearby communities, affecting health of residents as well as causing allergies, respiratory illnesses, and gastrointestinal complications from the bacteria they transport. All right, so Mexico has a very corrupted government that is bought by not only the cartels but other companies from the U.S. and around the world. And, several years back, they wanted to build an airport on a lake. Okay, they were going to destroy the ecosystem of the entire lake. People were protesting. They were saying that it was the stupidest project that the Mexican government could have, come up with. But because of special interests of, private corporations and others that had already bought pretty much the land around the area that they were going to do the airport in, for shops and everything like that. They wanted to have the airport done there by all means necessary. Luckily, they were able to stop it. The next president came through, and he was able to stop that. And now that lake is saved. Now, could this be the reason why? It may not be climate change, that caused the lake to be dried up. It might just be corruption from Mexico that did it. We don't know. I guess we'll find out. But what I'm trying to say here is that Mexico is not the only one experiencing drought. We're experiencing drought in the United States. They're experiencing drought in South America. They're experiencing droughts in other places around the world that is going to affect the food, the ecosystem that's going to affect other places. So that is the reason we have to make sure that we're prepared with our water. We need to have a stream of water running through our property 24/7, 365, that is not dependent on rain, if at all possible. We can have a well, rain catchment system if it's legal in your state, but I do want to say that if the drought becomes a lot worse and prolonged in these areas, even areas where it's not illegal to catch rain, it may turn illegal for the time that the drought is declared. So you have to pay attention to that and consider that as well for the future. And you also have to have bottled water stocked up, enough for you, your livestock, your pets, your alliance, for everybody that is going to be depending on you to be able to give them the water. So you have to make sure that you take all these steps. And the reason that I say that is because of the next headline that I have for you. And I'm going to read a very short part of it, because this could be something that could happen again over and over, because it has already happened in the past. And this article comes from NBCnews.com, and the headline says, 50,000 security disasters waiting to happen. The problem of Americans' water supplies. On January 15, a hacker tried to poison a water treatment plant that served parts of the San Francisco Bay Area. It didn't seem hard, right? And I encourage you to go on there and read the entire article. But what pretty much it said is that, somebody tried to move the levels of the chemicals, making it more poisonous for people to consume. The same thing happened in Florida, and I think in other places. So this is something that may start continuing to happen more often, especially since the workers from those water plants are working from home. So, it's easier for them to be hacked. So that is the reason why you have to have your preps in place, because if the water supply, there's an announcement in your area, like it happened in Flint, Michigan, where they were relying on bottled water for several years. You can have that in place and it won't affect you as much, especially if you already have your preps in place to where you won't have any type of water coming through your faucet for many, many years. All right. And taking the steps that I told you, with the water coming through your property, surface water, wells, catchment systems, and bottled water, that can help you to have a better outcome than everybody else around you who did not prepare. All right. And the final headline that I have for you is something to ponder. It's not something that really could, how can I say this? This is something that you have to think about, because it could happen in the future. And this is not politically motivated. Even though this article has to do with politics, my reasoning that, this can turn towards this direction without it being political. This comes from Breitbart.com, and it says, Biden administration asks Americans to report potentially radicalized friends and family. And the reason that I felt like this article was appropriate, or at least the title of it was appropriate for this podcast, is because if there's droughts and shortages of food and everything else, do you really think the government uses citizens against each other in order to tattletale to see who has food and water and everything else? Because of this headline, it is important for you to understand that although I teach you that you don't have to be a selfish prepper, you do have to have some type of security system in place. Because, you don't want to broadcast to the entire world like I'm doing, that you're preparing and that you have preps in place, right? You want to keep it down low. That is the reason why I teach you here that for your alliance, the people that that you think that would be in your group, such as, your friends and your family, close friends and family, or you can spread that out as much as you want, but you can split them into 3 parts. Responsible people who you trust, unreliable people who you don't trust, and children. The unreliable people, of course, you don't want to tell them a thing. You don't want them to know anything. And the people who are responsible, who you would want to reach out to be part of your prepper group, you would tell them, I want to bring you this information. I think we should prepare. And even if you don't want to be part of the group, then, I would really appreciate if you can keep your mouth shut about this, because, I don't want attention to myself. Even if those people do reject you, the ones that you think are the responsible ones, you should also prepare for them to come back to you, because now you give them the opportunity, so they know that you're preparing. So once they come to you, once crap hit the fan, you should accept them, because you're going to need a community around you. They might not be part of the group where that makes decisions for the entire group. They might just be a worker, a working bee that's going to be, working for their food, working for their security, working for, medical treatment, or working to have a bath, or, have clothing, or whatever the case may be. They may not be in the ruling group. They might be in the group that makes everybody else thrive. So that's why it's important for you to keep things on the down low and only tell people who you trust. You don't want to broadcast it. This what I'm doing here. People that I know, that I've known from high school and other places, from church and everything, they didn't know that I was a prepper until I started doing the podcast. And once they find out, they reach out, and I did bring some people in, and, I did work with them so they can be prepared, and, they know they can count on me if something bad happens. So if you're not broadcasting your preparedness to everybody, and you shouldn't, especially on Reddit or, comments or anything like that, you should not do it just to keep you safe. All right. And so just make sure that you take this serious, that, even though a heat wave is something silly to talk about because of the reasons that I brought it to your attention, it shows that people are out there that have no clue on how to live outside the grid, right? There's no way for them to comprehend that the power may go out and they may not have a heater or a cooler in their home making them comfortable, as opposed to the temperature that's outside. So preparedness is important. It should be part of the American society. The gas shortages pretty much proved that last time. People were taking, desperate steps because they did not understand preparedness. And the same thing can be said with a heat wave. All right, so make sure that you're not a selfish prepper. If you can help somebody, help them. Especially if they're elderly and they don't have, disposable income that they can use to their preparedness. Be that helping hand, and we can get these community preppers, out there and be not selfish and be able to help other people. So I would really encourage you to do that. All right, so before I let you go, I want to remind you again about the store, MemorySurvivalStore.com. I want to remind you about the book that I'm giving away for free, which is Preppers Secrete Cache. You can go to the front page of the store. You can click the link that will take you to another page where you can fill out your information. We'll send you the book absolutely free. I do want to mention that all we need your help is with the shipping. The book retails for $24.99 and the shipping is $9.99. So you are, in fact, getting it for free. And also I want to mention that the second book that I wrote, that one has been put on pause for the time being, because quite frankly, I ran out of money. So I don't have the money to cover the printing, the audiobook, and the cover being made. So I have to wait on that. It's just for me to save more money from my job and everything else, and see if I can get, people to help me out, get it printed out sooner so I can get it out to you. So if you would be interested in purchasing the book, I would really appreciate it. And, of course, it's going to help continue this podcast coming along. Also going to the store, MemorySurvivalStore.com, making a purchase will also help towards that. And I would really appreciate it if you can help me in that way. But anyways, I want to leave you with that. Again, my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
the Man-Made Survival Show.